everyone. I'm Linda Nickel, and welcome back to another session of my Happiness Hour. On Tuesdays, I post the lineup on my Instagram page at Cousin Linda, or it's now on my website, lindanickel.com. So as new dates are added to the calendar, I hope that you will be just as excited as I am when you see the list of speakers and topics that I've lined up. As a favor to me, if you are enjoying any of these sessions, even if you've just been here once, please share by tagging your friends and encourage them to join us, because all of these sessions are free, and my goal here is to help us all connect, inspire, and create. And if this is the first time you've joined us, you can check out our past sessions on YouTube, and those are now linked through my website. So next week, Karen Riley, who is a very dear friend of mine, is going to be here with a new topic. She spoke at an earlier session, but her topic next week is going to be blog goals. And Karen runs a website called homeplate101.com. And it's more of a family, lifestyle, homeschooling, finances, a little bit of everything is on that website. So if you have a moment, check that out. She's going to share some of her experiences and the tools that have helped her set up her website and blog. And she'll address some of the successes and failures, and she's going to offer you guys some great tips on how you can get started on the right track, such as what's the purpose for your blogging, how do you get started, formatting your content, and most importantly, how you can make some money with your blogs. So one of the reasons that I love these sessions is to connect with new people and to introduce you to other creatives. So I want you to use the chat line at the bottom of your screen. Add your Instagram, your website, and where you're from. I'd like to know where you're sitting right now, so that, most of it's curious. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I understand someone here is from Australia, and I just think that is so cool. So if you're new to Zoom, at the top right of your screen, you're going to notice that you can select gallery or speaker view. And I'd recommend that you use speaker view during the presentation. Jim's going to share his screen, and that'll be a little easier for you to view. The lady at the controls is Erin Randall, and she's kind of my personal Sherpa. She calls herself that. I don't, but I'm going to get used to it. And she'll keep you all on mute, but you can add any questions that you have for Jim in the chat line. And that's my job, is to get them in front of him. So put those down there. Jim Livingston, wave.
Hello.
He's our guest tonight. He's an Amarillo-based photographer, and I met Jim a couple of years ago over Instagram. And one of the things that drew me to his page were his images of these star-studded skies over the Texas Panhandle. They are just beautiful. So if night sky is something you're interested in, go look at his Instagram, his website. He's all over the place, all over social media. But one of the things Jim said, right, I think we were messaging, and he said, if you ever get up to Amarillo, I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee. And so I guess that would have been May of 2018. I had told Erin, I really want to go to Palo Duro. And she's like, let's do it. And I said, well, and I'd kind of like to meet this guy. I don't know who he is, but will you go with me? And she's like, let's do it. He took us to this barbecue / Italian gelato restaurant, which was fantastic.
It was good.
Yeah, you just don't see those things in, I think we're in Canyon, Texas at that point. But, we just ended up really hitting it off. And at one point I gave Jim the key to my car, and he just drove us around, and we shot for like 2 days in a row. And he's just an interesting character. He comes with the ability to do storytelling, and he's very proud of his little corner of Texas. So if he traps you, you're going to get to learn a lot about the Panhandle. So over the last couple of years since I've met him, he's been documenting, and he is dedicated to this project where he is trying to preserve the legacy of the historic Route 66. And tonight he's going to share stories and images from his I Am Route 66 project. And he's going to introduce you to some of those people that he's met along the route. And hopefully he'll share some tips on how you can add storytelling to your photography. So Jim, I'm going to hand this over to you, and I'm going to say thank you so much for coming to do this. And I didn't even have to like work really hard on you. So that just made my job easier. So take it away.
Oh man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you inviting me. This is public speaking is something I actually really enjoy, so it's not something that I'm kind of afraid of like a lot of people. And the chance to talk about this project, which I'm just really, really passionate about, is really wonderful. So I appreciate you actually inviting me to do this. So should I hit the share screen?
Now you can share screen.
Yeah,
Okay, so if I hit share screen, so please forgive me for being technologically challenged. Okay, now are you getting?
Looks good.
Yep.
It looks good? Okay.
Yep.
So the project that I'm doing is called I Am Route 66. It's about the people that work, live, and travel on Route 66. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Route 66. I thought I'd tell a little bit about myself. I'm a 54-year-old artist photographer. I started photography when I was 14 and ended up when I was in my 20s in El Salvador during the 1990s, during the Civil War, doing photography. And much of what I photographed during that time was extremely ugly. And I'm not talking like really brutal stuff. And so when I came home, the viewfinder, it caused me to have a lot of bad memories. And so I gave up photography completely. And I didn't pick up the camera again until about 2010. So switched careers at that time to social work. Did social work for a number of years until I injured my back really, really bad in 2002. Had a lot of mobility issues and chronic pain issues. And I ended up picking up the camera for therapy. It did two things for me. It helped me to walk, to go take pictures of the landscapes, but it also helped me to reframe how beautiful the world was. In 2013, I moved to Amarillo, Texas. I'd already had a master's degree, but I moved to Amarillo, Texas, to the junior college here, which is the best college that I've ever attended. And I got my certificate in photography. They have a wonderful, just basic photography program. So that's a little bit about me. In short, the I Am project is just me asking people three questions. I am, I regret, and before I die. Here's a typical example of a guy up in Illinois, Bill Thomas. It started off in Amarillo at the 806 coffee shop, which is this cool little kitschy coffee shop on Route 66. And they asked me to do an art show. And I've done quite a few art shows. And when I was sitting there, I was really amazed at how just eclectic the group was. You know, there might be a biker there. There might have been a banker from the local bank, homelessness people, millionaires, bikers to preachers. It was just really crazy. And so I decided to do an art show to show off the eclectic nature of this crowd in this coffee shop. And I didn't realize at the time, part of the reason that it was so eclectic was Route 66 and people actually traveling on Route 66 on a vacation. What a lot of Americans don't realize is Route 66 is a destination vacation spot in and of itself. People fly in to Chicago, they drive all the way down Route 66 to LA, and then they go home. And it's a lot of Americana, and it's just really wonderful. So here are some pictures of that original show back in 2015. It was really well attended. For a photographer or an artist, let me tell you something. If you do an art show about people, the chances of people showing up at your art show are really great because they're going to show up to see themselves and they're going to bring their families. So keep that in mind. If you want a big audience, shoot people. The questions, I am, I regret, and before I die, it started out to cheat away a problem that I was having because originally there was not going to be any questions on the pictures. But what I discovered was a picture of a stranger is just a picture of a stranger. So how do I get the viewer to emotionally connect to the picture in the portrait? And to illustrate this problem, I want to show you a historical picture. The Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange, probably one of my all-time favorite photographers. 1936, right? So this photograph is timeless. So here she is, 1936. She's on Route 66, actually, ironically, and she finds this mother who's really struggling just to get her kids fed. I posit what makes this portrait so powerful is we can all identify with that expression, right? When you look at her expression, you understand the worry, you understand just the pain that she's going through. And what happens is you identify with her experience and it brings you back to your own experience. So the questions, it was really a cheating gimmick kind of thing. I mean, I hate to admit that, but how could I get people to emotionally connect with the portraits? And so what I decided to do was to allow the person in the portrait to express themselves more than just with their, visual emotions or whatever. I let them do the connection with their answers. So that started in 2015. I have over 1,500 portraits at this point. And one of the most powerful experiences in this whole thing came about when the people that I photographed began to die. Since I started in 2015, 6 of the individuals that I had the honor of photographing and getting their portrait have passed away. Here's 4 of them. The guy in the upper right-hand corner with the glasses, his name is Terry Callis. Terry attended the Amarillo College program with me, and he was a retired colonel in the Air Force. Before I die, I want to rediscover my artistic side and have the opportunity to show the world my photography and art. Terry Callis. Terry Callis was coming home one night on his motorcycle. He loved to ride his motorcycle, go out in the country, take photographs, and a guy rear-ended him, and he was killed instantly. And let me tell you, if that doesn't make you stop and think about that question before I die, and I really challenge you. I can't promise you many things, but I can promise you that you're not going to live forever. And if you've got stuff on your bucket list, start doing things to take care of that today, really and truly. Terry actually was able to do some of that. He was published. He did an art show or 2. So he actually got to do that. Now, I'm going to talk about Bob Mullins, who's the guy up on the left when I get to the slide and introduce him. So most of the people here are photographers or artists. So when I was doing this, preparing this, what I wanted to do was maybe kind of give you some insights. If I could go back in time and talk to myself back when I started this project, what kinds of things do I wish I would have known then that I know now? I Am Route 66 has over 48,000 files. Organization has been a huge challenge for me. Think about that, 48,000 files. It's been going on since 2015, specifically connected to Route 66 has only been going on since last year, right? So, I mean, that number seems astronomical, but consider that I have the answers that the people did on some paper. I have their release forms. I have 20,000 photographs of Route 66, 1,500 portraits. I have a ton of iPhone scenes, behind the scenes videos, stuff like that. Text files that I would send to myself to remind myself of historical issues of the places that I've been. Emails from people asking me questions or sending me their biographies or sending me information about the places that I shot. Photos of pamphlets. I mean, it just was amazing how fast that number added up. How do I find a specific file out of 48,000 files? And so I've really had to develop a huge organization system. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to do your organization, but I'm going to tell you that if you're going to do a photo project, whether it's documenting the birds in your backyard, your coffee cups, or documenting musicians in Southern Alabama, you want to think about how you're going to organize those files, how you're going to keep them straight. So the other thing that happened last year was the year that I really focused on Route 66. I drove 25,000 miles in 9 months, Chicago to LA, and it was kind of back and forth. So I might go to Albuquerque and then back to Amarillo. I might go to Tulsa and back to Amarillo. I might go to Chicago and back to Amarillo. But 25,000 miles, one of the things that I really wish that I would have done was gone and talked to a tax. Lori Harrell, I saw that. I wish I would have talked to a tax attorney. I wish I would have spent more time paying attention to what was tax deductible and wasn't, because I'm trying to write a book. So this is a business venture. So if you're going to do something like a book, find out what can be tax deduction, what can't be tax deduction. The other legal issues that needed to be dealt with, which I did a pretty good job of, contracts. I do have business partners in this venture, people who have backed me. So make sure that you have contracts with everybody. I've had some relationships that have gone sour. People that wanted to participate and ended up just taking resources out, but not putting anything in. So the contracts were really important. Release forms. If you're going to shoot people at all, you really need your release forms really tight and have the information in there that you need. Copyright, this whole thing is copyrighted, and I Am Route 66 is trademarked. So there's a lot about this, a lot of things that you want to consider before you go into it, and do some research. Or, if you can afford an hour with a lawyer, copyright lawyer, whatever, I highly recommend it. Tell you a little bit about the photography that I did with people. It started off, and those portraits were really, they were like headshots. They were like professional headshots that you would do for real estate agents or something like that. And what I found was that they were boring like that. And so I started being more casual. I stopped using my flash. I started using more natural light. So I jumped up to a Pentax K1. It's a full frame camera. It does wonderful in low light situations. So make sure that you have the right equipment if you're going to do a project like this. Now, these pictures, when you look at them, they look like they have no background, like maybe there's a white background. In all actuality, all of these are just the natural background. I gave up trying to carry a white background. I mean, this lady right here, she was semi-homeless here in Amarillo. She's walking down the street on Route 66. I love the fact that she was flashing this, "You are awesome," at people driving by. And so I stopped and I talked to her. The wind would have tore my background right away. And so I just gave up on trying to carry a background with me, but I became really good at masking the background out at Photoshop. Posing, posing's an issue. When you point a camera at somebody, they're going to start smiling. They want you to take their best picture. I didn't necessarily want a pose picture. What I wanted was something that felt more natural. And so one of the things that I would try to do was engage them in a conversation, get them talking, and then as they're talking, take their picture. Didn't always work, but a lot of times it did. The other thing that we're doing right now is I felt like having their answers in their own handwriting would convey a lot about who they were. And it really does. It's really interesting to see their answers in their own handwriting. But in a book that's 8.5 inches by 11 inches, when I have 4 of these per page, sometimes it's very problematic. So actually, I wish that I would have had them help me more by typing the answers out. And so now that's one of the things I'm doing. Route 66, let me tell you a little bit about Route 66. It's 2,400 miles long. It goes from Chicago to Los Angeles. There's the track of it. See, it goes right through Amarillo. It has multiple alignments. So as the population grew, Route 66 just didn't stay static. It was started in 1926. A guy by the name of Cyrus Avery came up with the idea. But as the population moved and you started having traffic congestion and stuff like that, Route 66 would actually change. So to say it's 2,400 miles long actually depends on what year you're talking about. And one of the cool things about Route 66 is sometimes it's actually really neat to kind of track down those old alignments. Kind of a funny story. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and I met an author in St. Louis, and we were talking. He goes, "Well, what hospital were you born in?" I said, "Diaconus Hospital." And he smiled at me and he said, "Do you know that's on the 1933 alignment of Route 66? So by the time I was born in 1966, Route 66 had completely changed. But it's kind of neat to think that I was actually born on Route 66 while I'm writing a book on Route 66. Now, even more ironic is June, my lovely partner in crime. She was born on Route 66 here in Amarillo at the hospital here. So we are actually both born on Route 66, 800 miles apart. It was fully decommissioned in 1985. What happened was the U.S. highway system was replaced by the interstate system, which attempted to bypass the towns and increase the speed of traffic all over the United States. Just because the Route 66 was decommissioned in 1985, what you find out is really it died, parts of it died a lot sooner than that. So for instance, here in Amarillo, I-40 went through Amarillo in the 1970s. And even though US Route 66 still existed, it people were taking the interstate. And so the traffic on it just dried up in the 1970s. By 1985, it was completely decommissioned. It's been popularized by movies. I don't know if y'all have seen Cars. It's been in several different movies, though. Music, I get your kicks on Route 66, and literature. You know, probably one of the most seminal American novels, The Grapes of Wrath, is about a journey down Route 66 from Oklahoma. And here it begins, corner of Michigan and Jackson in Chicago, Illinois. One of my favorite pictures. That building in the back is the Chicago Institute of Art, one of the most reputable art institutions in the United States. It's really an amazing place. Here are some of the pictures that I've taken in Illinois, some of my favorite places. If you look up at the upper right-hand corner, that is Juliet. Route 66 goes right by the famous prison. It was built in the 1850s, I believe. It's also the beginning of the Blues Brothers. I mean, come on, what more Route 66 can you get than that? So here's my favorite pictures from Illinois. Now, this is one of the people that I met while I was in Illinois. His name is Buzz Waldmeyer. Really oddball connection. This guy I met in Springfield, Illinois. His father invented the corny dog. And the guy was actually in Amarillo at the Air Force Base here in Amarillo. Amarillo used to have an Air Force base. And he was trying to figure out this problem. He wanted to put cornmeal around a hot dog and deep fry it. And anyway, so his father is the guy who invented the corny dog. Really great guy to talk to about Route 66 and the history of Route 66. His brother is an artist, Bob Waldmeyer, who's just a phenomenal artist who has passed away, but he's actually one of my favorite artists. So it was really wonderful to talk to this guy about the history of Route 66 and his brother, and he himself is just a wonderful guy. This lady right here, there's a restaurant in Chicago called Lou Mitchell's. This is Lou Mitchell's oldest employee. She's been there longer than anybody else. I'm a cheesehead from Green Bay, a big Packer fan. Her regret, I didn't quite know how to answer her, but I kind of giggled. I regret my ex-husband when I left him when I was 9 months pregnant. May he burn rotten hell. So, you know, some of the answers are pretty.
Yeah. Oops. Hey, Jim. Can you hear me?
Jim, we lost audio on you. Linda, on our side, he looks like he has audio.
Yeah, he does. It sounds like it. Mute. All right, let me see. Hang on just a second. Yeah. Let me go back to the main screen here.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened.
No, it's probably something on my end. I apologize for that.
That's
Can you
okay.
see me and all that stuff?
I
All right,
think
are we
we're good now. Keep going, Jim.
Can you back up maybe one picture? It was
Yeah,
right
yeah,
before you
sure
got to-
can.
Yeah, it was the woman that basically
This
said,
lady?
her.
Right.
Let's talk about her.
Okay, so there's a restaurant, Lou Mitchell's. This is Lou Mitchell's in Chicago. It's an amazing restaurant. If you get to Chicago, you got to eat here. It was actually on Route 66 before Route 66 existed. In fact, they're saying is when Route 66 got here, we were already here. So it's been there since before the 1920s, right? This lady right here is one of the oldest employees that they have. And, you know, so I'm talking to her. She's just a neat lady, and she's kind of a little bit uncomfortable with me doing an interview and picture and stuff like that. And I regret my ex-husband who left me when I was 9 months pregnant. May he rot in hell. Some of the answers that I got were pretty, I mean, really, really honest, you know, and some of them were kind of hard to read. This is actually Catherine Thanos, who is the owner of Lou Mitchell's. Neatest story about that is we show up and it's Easter Sunday and they are busy. I mean, they're just busy, busy, busy. And she's playing host and she's greeting people and stuff. She comes by and I got my camera and I've got all this paperwork and she asked me what's going on. And so I tell her about the project. And I looked up at her and I said, I know you're busy right now, but if I come back when you're not busy, could I get your portrait? Somebody said something to her and she went flirting off. And she comes back about 15 minutes later and she has all of her answers written down. And she grabs me and she drags me back to the back room and she lets me take her portrait. She's in her 80s, just a rich lady. I mean, just wonderful. And her daughter died a few years ago. And she began to tell me about how that, she grew up Greek Orthodox and, she was moderately religious, but didn't really have a relationship with Christ. And that whole relationship, now what she believes and what I believe are very different, but the fact that this lady shared that with me, that it meant so much to her, that shared that with me, it's amazing how that this project had allowed me to have these really intimate moments with complete and total strangers. She talked about how her daughter died and that just broke her heart, et cetera, et cetera. Leaving Illinois, going into Missouri. This is the Chain of Rocks Bridge, which goes over the mighty Mississippi. And here in St. Louis, this donut drive-in was built in the 1950s, and they still serve donuts. They have some of the best donuts in all of St. Louis. I think all of Missouri, really. The two people on the bottom are the two people that work there. And they were very gracious. Not only did they service their amazing donuts, but they took the time out of their busy schedule to answer my questions and to visit with me about the history of the place. The guy up in the upper right-hand corner is Joe Sonderman. Joe is a radio personality and traffic reporter in St. Louis, and he's a historian, probably one of the brightest people that I know. I've written some wonderful books about Route 66. He's the guy I go to if I need to know questions. He's the guy that told me I was born on Route 66, by the way. Going back to the immemorial, Bob Mullins was on that first paragraph. This building that you see here is in Cuba, Missouri. Bob became an enthusiast for Route 66 and he began to collect memorabilia, and his collection got so big that he made Bob Mullins Gasoline Alley. Last year, Bob was healthy. No, as far as I know, nobody knew anything bad about him. And he passed away earlier this year, rather unexpectedly. This thing that he built on Route 66, which is just a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. I mean, you can see all these wonderful artifacts for free. It's like a museum, but it's really fun, right? His children don't share the same interest, and so they're auctioning off. Nobody has come forward to buy the entire thing, so they're auctioning off all of these different artifacts. Route 66, one of the dangers of Route 66 is that a lot of the historical places, a lot of the places on Route 66 that make it so special are in danger of disappearing. Lowell Davis, oh, and look at the handwriting there. I screwed that up somehow or another. That is my problem and not Lowell's. His handwriting is not that bad. Lowell is an artist near Carthage, Missouri. Just a wonderful guy. One of the things that I loved about traveling Route 66 and talking to all these people was the stories, and people like Lowell just go on and on and on. They're just wonderful. Here are some of my favorite pictures from Missouri. Missouri, the Route 66 actually goes into the very corner of Kansas. It is only 13 miles in Kansas, so it's actually the shortest stretch of Route 66. This tow truck up here is actually the tow truck that they used for the modeling of cars. So that's pretty cool. Melba the Mouth. This lady is one of the funnest ladies that I've ever met. I actually met her in Albuquerque. One of the neat things about Route 66 is you might meet somebody from, in this case, Galena, Kansas, in Albuquerque. People travel up and down Route 66 that are enthusiasts about it, and you don't know where you're going to meet them. But here is a video of Melba that I thought you might like. She is known as Melba the Mouth for a reason. Can you hear that?
No, can't hear that.
Well, darn. I'm not sure why you can't hear that.
Is your volume up?
Audio. Okay, you want me to replay it?
Yeah, let's try that.
Still can't hear it, can you?
No, sure can't.
Oh, well. Sorry, we had it working earlier. All these, trying to coordinate all these different technologies. She talks faster than any human being that I've ever met in my life. It's just amazing. And that's why they call her Melba the Mouth. So one of the things that I got was I tried to get as many um, videos of people that I've met as I could. The Blue Whale in Catoosa, Oklahoma. So now we've gone from Kansas into Oklahoma. The Blue Whale is a concrete swimming platform that a guy built for his kids. And it's just really wonderful. It's really cool. Here are some of my favorite pictures of Oklahoma, Route 66 in Oklahoma. Down here at the right bottom is the Rock Cafe. The owner of the Rock Cafe is Don Welch. And Cars, many of the characters that are in Cars actually are real people. They're based on real live people. And Don was the inspiration for Sally in Cars. So, you know, it was really cool if you watch Cars to actually meet the people that inspired the specific characters in the car. Here's two more people. These two guys, both combined, were the inspiration for Tow Mater. The guy up at the top is Crazy Legs Dean Walker. He used to do rodeo, broke both of his legs, dislocated his knees. Dean has the oddity of being able to turn his feet completely around backwards, which kind of will cause you to blink twice. And with the scene where Tow Mater drives around backwards, part of that at least was inspired by the fact that Dean can turn his legs completely around backwards. Harley Annabelle down at the bottom, he is really the character of Tow Mater, kind of a redneck from Eric, Oklahoma, wonderful guy.
Quick question.
Well, yeah.
Jim, Jamie wants to know where that Conoco station is located.
The Conoco station is in Commerce, Oklahoma. So right across the border from Kansas. Really neat little town. There's also a Dairy King that was there, you know, in the original Route 66. Wonderful place. One of the things that's really cool about Route 66 is this is not a working Conoco station, but there are so many photo ops. It's just crazy. I mean, it's like mile after mile of cool Americana photo ops. Fran Hauser from right here in Texas. She's another person who inspired a character in Cars. She inspired the character of Flo from Cars. So moving from Oklahoma into Texas, here's Cadillac Ranch, which is technically not on Route 66. It's very close, but it's really associated with Route 66. Here are some of my favorite pictures from Texas. Do you recognize the building on the upper right from Cars, Ramones and Cars? They use that for the architecture. One of my favorite people that I met on Route 66 is Wanda Milburn Price. Wanda last year was 92. I bet she's 93 now. One of the sharpest individuals that I know. She was one of Texas's first women PhD candidates. Got her PhD in audiology. When I started talking to her about Route 66, I was real curious as to what her earliest memories were of Route 66. They were not of Route 66 at all. Wanda's earliest memories were driving cattle from Vega, Texas to Albuquerque on the Ozark Trail. So before there was even a highway, before there was even a dirt road between Albuquerque and Vega, Texas, she helped her father drive cattle down the Ozark Trail, which would later become the dirt road that would eventually become Route 66 and is now I-40. Moving into New Mexico, this is Tucumcary's Route 66 Museum. Some of my favorite pictures from New Mexico. The one thing that I love about Route 66 is the amount of neon. Again, going back to photo ops, if you love Americana, if you love that beautiful, you know, neon kind of look, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, it's all over Route 66. Two of the artists that live in Tucumcari, this guy right here does the murals. So if you've ever traveled through Tucumcari, there's, I bet you I'm going to tell you the wrong number, but I think there's like 214 murals all over Tucumcari, and this is the guy who did it. So one of the cool things about this whole project is I've met some of the most amazing artists, authors, historians. It's just been really wonderful. This guy owns a Mexican restaurant in Santa Rosa. Came back from Korea in 1954, I think, and he had a little jingle in his pocket from the Korean conflict, and he opened up the Comet 2, which is probably the best Mexican restaurant I have ever eaten in my life. He has a farm where he grows his own green hatch chilies. Moving from New Mexico on into Arizona, and I need to speed this thing up. This is the front, right outside the front door of David Yellowhorse. David Yellowhorse is a guy I followed for years, not even knowing he was connected to Route 66. David Yellowhorse makes knives, and he's way more than a knife maker. He's an artist. He's Navajo, just a really wonderful guy. And on a side note, I regret nothing. Man, I could write a book about my regrets. I regret nothing is the most common answer for I regret. Here's some of my favorite pictures of Arizona. This is Lilo Russell, who owns the Lilo's in Seligman, Arizona. Neat story. So a friend of mine leads tour groups down Route 66. He's from Germany, so a group of Germans will come over on Harley Davidsons, and they'll travel down Route 66, right? So he invited me to come have dinner. I happened to be in Seligman at the time, and so, but I didn't speak German. So I'm sitting at this table full of Germans who are enjoying their dinner, talking German, and I really am lost, because I don't speak German. But man, they're pulling out their phones and they're looking at pictures and they're pulling out the souvenirs that they got. They're showing each other and they're laughing and they're having a good time. And I realized that I don't speak German, but I speak the language of somebody who had a really wonderful day traveling. There is a language of travelers, that is above the actual language itself. And so I felt really connected to these people. And it struck me a real ironic fact. My uncle was a B-17 bomber pilot during World War II. And he survived all 25 missions. They only flew 25 missions. They had the highest ratio of death of any of the servicemen. He survived all 25 missions, and he, David, it was natural light. I used natural light on all of these. He survived all 25 missions, bombed Germany, and came home. And I'm sitting here with a group of people from Germany, and I'm thinking about the irony of what my uncle did. And I tagged Lilo's Lilo's in Facebook, and I say it was wonderful German food. And I tell that story, and I tell the irony of the fact that my uncle was a combatant and fought Germany. And this lady comes up from behind me and gives me this big bear hug from behind, total stranger. It was her. She was in a house in Germany. She was raised in Germany, and the house was bombed by B-17s, and it was destroyed, and she was in the basement. And for years, she was really resentful of Americans for what had happened to her family. And she migrated to America in the 1950s, and she too had that same sense of how wonderful it is that, we could all get along so wonderfully. David Yellowhorse. This guy right here, Jim Hinckley, is probably one of my favorite authors in the world. He's written all kinds of wonderful books. He and I talk on a really regular basis. Just a really, really great guy. I regret not having time to meet all of the fascinating people in the Route 66 community. Moving from Arizona right into California, and I'm trying to hurry up because I should be done in about 2 minutes. Here are some of my favorite pictures from California. California is an amazing place to travel Route 66. And it's not all LA. The hugest part of Route 66 is through the Mojave Desert, so it's really interesting. This is Rosie Ramos. Rosie is the manager at Finders River Resort. Rosie is one of the neatest ladies on Route 66, just friendly as can be. What I love about Finders, and it is my favorite place to stay on all of Route 66, is it backs up to the Colorado River. So they have a boat dock, and they have a place where you can sit and put your feet in the river, and there's people swimming all over the place and stuff. But you come down out of the Mojave Desert, and it's just all kinds of hot. And then you can, drink a beer or iced tea or whatever and sit there with your feet in the cool water, Rosie will come out and talk to you, and she's just a fascinating lady to talk to. She is a photographer herself, and she is really, really good. So we had a lot of really interesting conversations about photography in Route 66. Jim Conkle, another guy, and I'm running out of time, so I'm going to speed up, but Jim Conkle, 80-some-odd-year-old Route 66 enthusiast. If you Google him, you'll find that he has done all kinds of documentaries on Route 66. Really wonderful guy. This lady stopped at a coffee shop, met some guys at a coffee shop that I wanted to interview. Turns out the coffee shop, Andy's Coffee Shop, has been there since the 50s. It's been used in, I think, like 11 or 13 movies. And you know, driving down Route 66 in LA, you'd have no clue. I mean, it's just a coffee shop, right? So in meeting her and finding out the history of this coffee shop in LA, it was just so rich. She's just a really wonderful, wonderful lady, and really proud of how involved in Hollywood that her coffee shop has been. In fact, the TV that's in the corner there just loops the different scenes that her coffee shop has been in. But it was really just really rich to sit there and think of the movies that I've seen that coffee shop in. And here we are at the end of the trail. Honestly, this is probably one of my all-time favorite photographs. Traveled 2,500 miles the very first time I got to the end of the trail. Most people travel 2,400 miles. I traveled 25,000 miles to get to the end of the trail. And so I stood there and I felt hugely accomplished. I had 20,000 photographs of Route 66, 1,500 portraits. And I thought the majority of the work was done. The real challenge is putting together a photo book. It is way harder than I thought it would be. I mean, way, way harder than I thought it would be. Future plans. I want to travel Route 66 one more time. I really wish I was more organized. That way I knew what I wanted when I traveled down Route 66. There's a few holes that I want to fill. So June and I are actually kind of trying to figure out how to do the whole trip Route 66 in September. After I am Route 66, we want to do a couple of more projects. I mean, I talked to David Yellowhorse about possibly doing I Am Navajo, you know, or I Am the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I mean, I'd love to do projects about specific groups of people anywhere. I think it'd be fascinating. What I wished I'd have known going into this project, how important organization was going to be. You can imagine, like I said. The other thing that I wish I'd done was my original philosophy was that I wanted to experience Route 66 as it unfolded before me. I wanted to be that traveler who knew nothing about it. In retrospect, I wish I knew a lot about it because it would have sped up what I photographed. Anyway, so there you have it, folks. That's it. So Aaron, back to you.
Well, normally we would go back to Linda right about now, but let's go ahead and take questions. Linda accidentally got kicked out, and so we're going to punt from here. So
Okay.
Jim, let's go over and we'll see if, yeah, there's any more questions there. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. And
Could I hit stop share, Aaron?
Yeah, go ahead and stop sharing. We'll actually look at your face. That works too.
Okay.
Oh, wait, good. Here comes Linda.
I hate to admit this, but I have my camera here, but my computer screen's over here. So you're going to see me bob my head back and forth, and I apologize for that up front. I'm really not trying to do it.
Yeah, Linda should be coming right back in though. So I think we might have her again. But yeah, does anybody have a question for Jim? I'm seeing a lot of, you know, what a great story. It's nice to
Thanks,
see.
Melissa. I appreciate the comment.
Yeah. So does anybody have technical questions for Jim about light, about camera, anything like that?
I had seen somebody ask about natural lighting. Yes, I started off using flash, and what I decided was that it looked too polished. It looked too unreal, unnatural, and so I went to natural light.
Okay. Jama is asking how long you spent in each location.
Not long enough. In all honesty, I would like to spend like 6 months traveling Route 66 to do this project. Okay. A lot of times just one night, and a lot of times just a few hours, honestly.
And Karen was asking if you were ever going to finish your original I Am project.
It is actually pretty much done, and that was called I Am the Panhandle. It had 37 reject letters. So maybe, I don't know, who knows. The question is, Actually, to be honest with you, Lightroom does not work for me at all. 48,000 photos is just way too much for Lightroom to handle. So we're talking about 48,000 photos. It's like 5 external hard drives, and in Lightroom just really slows down. So that's not been something that have worked well for me.
James asking if you just walked into a place and started talking to people.
Absolutely. Man, I can't tell you the number of waitresses that I have, bartenders that I have. Just walk in, got the camera around my neck. Hey, I'm Jim Livingston. I'm a photographer, and I'm doing this project on Route 66. Ask people the 3 questions. And, what's really crazy is about, I'd say 90% of the people were into it.
Yeah.
About maybe 1 out of 10 would say, no, man, I don't want to be part. And I totally respected that. I saw somebody ask, was everybody happy with their portrait? I would say about 80% of the people were. Some people asked me to reshoot it. Remember, man, like if I'm spending an hour there and I'm shooting 10 different people, that's not a whole lot of time to spend making the picture perfect. And to be real frank, I am not a portrait photographer. That's not my jam, man. I love landscapes and I love nighttime landscapes. So, but it is what it is. And I kind of explain that to people that this is not a professional portrait deal that I'm doing. This is more, I want to try to catch the character. And I really like catching people in the middle of conversations.
So why did you choose to
So I'm back. So hang on, Erin, I'm back. So I'm going to interrupt because Camille has the same question I have. So we want to know the name of that great Mexican restaurant in Santa Rosa, New Mexico.
The Comet 2. And can I tell a story without somebody kicking me?
Yes.
So, so I'm sitting there and George he just started talking. George, you just wind him up and the stories just roll out of him, right? He's wearing, the bolo tie that he's wearing is his grandfather's New Mexico State Ranger from 1911. So, man, it was just awesome. And so, he started his restaurant in 1954. So I thought, man, if anybody has seen Route 66 and change, it's him. What changed most, George? Mexican food. You damn gringos, we had to invent stuff to keep you guys happy. When I was growing up, we didn't have all this crazy Mexican food. We had to come up with stuff because you guys wanted something fancy. That was one answer I did not expect. But anyway, I died laughing. Great guy. And it is amazing. It's probably the best Mexican restaurant on Route 66. And just a wonderful guy. He is so rich to talk to.
So, Erin, are you still there?
Of course, I'm still here.
Hi. So I've kind of lost, and I'm sorry, guys. My computer just went down and then went down again. So I'm not real sure. I'm going to get you to finish off these questions because I'm not sure what has already been asked. But I knew the Mexican food restaurant story, and I wanted him to tell it, but I couldn't remember the name. So I'm glad Camille asked.
Okay. Well, it sounds like David Valdez had some suggestions about the Briscoe Center and helping to get organized and published. So Jim, at the very end of this, we should make certain that you know who David Valdez is.
Absolutely. I'll friend him on Facebook, or if he could send me his email or something.
And Jennifer's asking, are there other highways or similar projects that you're planning?
If I had my fantasy life, I would have a very nice RV that I could live in, and I would do nothing but this all the time. I don't know that June would do that. She'd probably do it with me for three weeks out of the month. But we really want to do Highway 101 up the coast. Really, the long-term goal for this is I Am America. I want to shoot people in all 50 states. So,
sort of like that Dorothea Lange photo writ large then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Jamie Wagner says the Mississippi River route would be good too, or would be cool.
Oh, yeah. That's
actually
something I've always wanted to do, was travel up the Mississippi.
Yeah.
So if anybody has a question in there that we haven't gotten to, if you could enter it again, because there are a lot of them coming through and there were a lot of technical glitches back here. So if you want to enter it again.
So Mark Parsons, you are hilarious. He says, will you do a project called I Am Santa?
I darn sure would. I think that would be fascinating to take pictures of Santa Claus. I would be the first one. Seriously, that's what my beard is this long for. Is I'm planning on being Santa this Christmas.
Yeah.
Do I have to be good?
I'm not going to answer that. because I know better.
Eugene is suggesting Highway 1.
Yeah,
So
Actually, Eugene, I think that's a great idea.
that's a
I
great
do
idea.
too.
Mark,
I do too.
and I don't know how to pronounce your name, last name, Mark Durker.
Yeah,
Jim,
for
what
sure.
was your favorite pie on Route 66? I am starving, so all these food questions are working for me.
Okay, there's an inside story to that kind of. Mark is a brother from another mother, and he's traveled a little bit of Route 66 with me. Adrian, Texas is 45 miles away from Amarillo. It has the Midpoint Cafe, which has the absolute most amazing fried bologna sandwich. And I know a bunch of you just went, "Ugh," but it really is good. And they have the Elvis peanut butter pie that there are people that come from Germany just to have a slice of this pie. It's absolutely amazing. Brenda Bradley can make the most amazing heaven homemade pie ever. And it's actually the midpoint. So it's actually right in the middle of Chicago to LA. And Mark and I have shared several pieces of pie there. So,
So Melissa O has grown up on bologna sandwiches. So did I, Melissa.
oh, these are amazing, man. She has fried onions and cheese, and they're like gourmet, you know?
I was gonna say they're gourmet.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. So if there are any last, okay, here's one more question. Oh, it's a good question too, Mark Parsons. Jim, do you have a plan for a time frame for your book?
Um, you know what's really interesting is that last slide where I said that this is the hard part of this whole project is putting this thing together, and it really and truly is. I was a little discouraged. There's another author who I love. His name is David Wickline. He's written some books about Route 66. I love his books, and our books are similar in size and not maybe the composition is kind of similar. It took him 2 years to put his book together, and my my dream goal, if I had all the time to work on it every single day, would be that the book would be ready to go to a editor in August. And then the whole publishing process, that can be mind-boggling at that point.
Okay. Well, I, for one, am looking forward to you finishing that, and I'll be in line to get mine autographed. Um, so, Jim, gosh, thank you for coming on and doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You are one of the busier people that I know, and it takes time to put something like this together and to just get on here and tell stories off the cuff. I mean, these are coming from your heart. You lived these miles, and you earned every one of those stories. And Jama said it earlier. You know, I should have warned y'all to bring the tissues, because I think the ones that really resonated with me were the people that have already passed away. And there was especially that very young girl in that portrait. That one kind of caught me off guard.
She
So,
was 22. I shot her,
yeah.
and less than a year later, she passed away. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, Linda, honest to God, I think you talked about being busy. Um, this whole project and those people dying made me realize that the stuff I want to get done, I need to get done. I don't need, there's not going to be a best day to start it. I might as well do a little bit every single day on these projects that I want to get done. And so, you know, part of my deal is I'm going to die. So what do I want done before I die?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, you know, all of us need to get busy, and, you know, everybody has a secret project they're working on, and, you know, let's stop wasting time and let's just get going. Okay, Jim, I'm going to cut you off and say thank you very much.
Can I
Um,
ask one favor? And I
shit.
didn't think to bring it, but there's a segment on Texas Country Reporter
Oh,
that if you
yes,
are
yes,
more interested, is
yes.
really a nice segment. So if you could throw that in the notes.
I am going to throw, okay, so guys, I'm going to post this to my YouTube channel. I didn't want to have a YouTube channel. I'm not a YouTuber, but it's a great place to put these sessions. I will link that Country Reporter, Texas Country Reporter video to this, and Jim's website is there. His Instagram pages will be there. If you have a few extra minutes, look and see some of those other sessions that we did, because we've done, I think Jim is number 10 or 11. You might be in number 11.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
Sherry Hunt was with us last week. She did Milky Way hunting for beginners. That was
Oh, that was good.
that was a really good
Yeah, that is really good.
session. Michael Rung did one on Lightroom, and he will be back. Karen Riley will be here next week to do blog goals. And if you are thinking about blogging or starting a website, come listen to Karen. She is one of those people that I go to when I have a great idea, but I don't know where to start. And she always seems to be able to break things down methodically, and they always make sense. So I'm happy to have her back. With that, Erin, you want to say goodbye?
Good. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Y'all, thank y'all. Have a good week, and I hope we will see you guys back next week. Thanks a lot.